Every generation has its own sense of style, but what if your child's style choices just don't mesh with your family's values? The shorts are too short, or other clothes are just too revealing or sloppy. Today's Parenting Today takes a look at the issue of kids and setting some limits on dressing appropriately. Well, let's talk about, when it comes to dressing with your kids, as far as starting at a very young age up to the teen years, you really want to make sure they don't put too much emphasis on clothing, and that can be a big deal. It can be expensive, but it can also, it's what your family values are too. So one of the things we want to talk about is, what are the things that parents could focus more on to make clothes less important?
Well, wise parents focus on things that are innate. The kids' attitude, their level of kindness, their work ethic, not necessarily what's on the outside.
All right, and then so one of the things we talked about as well is, what are some things we can say about clothing that doesn't necessarily have any judgment with it?
Right, so we want to focus not on the cuteness or how it looks, but focus on
the practicality of
clothing. Being comfortable, protecting us, and it's important that we really focus on kind of that phrase, what's on the inside that counts, and just not focus so much on the outside appearance.
All right, and one of the things we talked about as well is when our child comes to us and they say, hey, what do you think about what I'm wearing today?
Oh,
and
I know.
Those kind of questions, what do you say? What's a good way to say it without putting a lot of judgment in it?
Right, and we want to stay away from the judgment, so I use phrases like, that dress really looks comfortable, or I noticed the bright colors. There's no judgment in that. When we use that phrase, I noticed, that's not a judgmental phrase.
Yeah, it looks like it's comfortable to play in or something like that. All right, now when it gets, some kids, as they get a little bit older, what they're wearing can become more of an issue. Like I'm at that point, at my house. So you want to make sure that what your kid's wearing match your values. So what are some of the things you could say to kids at home if they come and ask you about what they're wearing, and maybe it's not something you agree with?
So some of the language, and again, we come back to that phrase, language shapes reality. What we choose to say here can either make things smooth or it can create conflict. I like phrases like, sweetie, I'd be happy to let you out of the house when you're dressed appropriately. That's an enforceable statement. Or maybe we're out shopping for clothing in the fall. I say, I'd be happy to buy clothing that's not so revealing. That's something that I can enforce.
All right, now like myself, a lot of parents have been doing a lot of homecoming shopping, things like that, whether you have a boy or a girl. So what are some things to keep in mind when it comes to those kind of things, dating, and what's appropriate dress for dating?
I like the phrase, I let kids date when I don't have to worry about them trying so hard to fit in by wearing, inappropriate clothing.
And then hopefully, if we start young enough, if you have a chance your kids are a lot younger and you start soon enough, hopefully you won't have made it such a big deal by the time they're teenagers.
Less is more, less is more. And in a house I know really well, those girls in my home, they know, Dad, I know what's on the inside that counts, but how does this dress look? And I say, I'm not sure. What do you think?
And leave it at that.
And we leave it at that.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. If you want to know more about having some parenting tips, whether it's about this or a different issue, just head to our website at news8000.com.